I just want to say real quick too, thank you so much, Thoughts and Perceptions Out Loud, for doing my new intro. I absolutely adore it. I just thank you so very much. I think it's so fantastic when we can all come together and share and create with each other. And I just want everybody to reach out and give her some love. She's got an amazing channel. Thanks again, hun. Love it. Hey, 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 everyone. How's it going? Oh my gosh, it's been forever, hasn't it? Please forgive me. It's been totally crazy and totally off the hook in my own reality. And of course, the oven would go off right then, wouldn't it? Oh, please. Okay, so we have so much to talk about. I don't even know how much to cover in this short little span. So here's what we're going to do. I'm currently working on a video that I think is going to be epic. I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to rock a whole lot of subjects, and it's going to combine them and kind of bring some more clarity to a couple of things. I'm going to include a couple of links from a few friends of mine that have some pretty awesome stuff that they have also shown on their channels. So look for that coming up very, very soon. We're going to talk about the light spectrums, how as we activate more of this crystalline DNA, or you could say dormant DNA, as more of these adamantine particles come in through the atmosphere, you could say God particles, you could say higher photonic light. Some could even say radiation. Some could say gamma waves, gamma radiation. All of that is changing our physical vessel. A lot of you understand that the Schumann resonance has been spiking off the charts. It was always very, very consistent, 7.83, I believe, or 7.43, one of those. And now we're seeing consistent spikes of over 60. We're not used to that. We're not used to how that's going to change our physiological bodies as humans. It changes everything. It has everything to do with the atmosphere. It has everything to do with our environment. It has everything to do with the nature kingdom, so that's all of the soil, the water, the earth, the environment, the air that we breathe, has everything to do with that. It also changes the animals and the animal environment. It also changes us as physical human beings. So as more of this higher photonic light continues to flood the planet, okay, we always had a much higher magnetosphere to keep some of this stuff out. Now we're having more and more and more of that flood in. I actually was given a message I saw, maybe it was through Paul Butler, I'm not exactly sure, but somebody I saw just a couple weeks ago, I got the same message personally, so it was really huge confirmation for me. But we had a huge day where there was just like a spike on the Schumann resonance. I want to say it was over 60 for like a blackout period for like 24 hours. I got the same message. That was the first time that some of us had tails, had somebody trailing us through a 24-hour period that was of a higher vibrational level being. You could say angels, archangels, however you want to put that into your perspective. But we had somebody else, a lot of us, following us for a 24-hour period. That was the first time that I had been told that that had actually happened. They peek in on us throughout moments. That's how I was told that this occurs. Lots of times we have these moments where they peek in, where they're with us. They're with us all the time, but not like that. Not like being in our reality. Does that make sense? So for a 24-hour period, a lot of us had tails where they actually followed us around and were with us for the entire 24 hours. I was told that they were appalled at what they saw, that they were really overwhelmed, to put it nicely. And so that's why we received those giant spikes for the next 24-hour period, is because they really wanted to flood us with more and more of those higher light packets. Now, as we talk about you could say the higher photonic light coming in, there's so much of this I'm going to go over in this video coming up, but just to touch on a little bit of this for right now for a lot of people. As these, you could say, DNA activation codes come in from the sun or through each other. Now, this can happen either individually when we go within through meditation or searching for those answers ourselves. This can also happen through other people activating us and giving us DNA activation codes as well. And it could also happen through the sun. As these higher photonic light comes in, lots of that stuff carries these, what we call packets of information that can come in on the filaments that we see. It can also come in on the DNA fractals, or these, you could say, adamantine particles, these sparkles. All of that contains packets of information. Now, whether you unlock those packets and interpret those packets and integrate those packets, now that's up to you on a very large degree on whether you're accepting of those packets of information. So that is a very individual choice. So as more and more of that continues to flood the planet, everything on the planet is getting hit with more and more of this higher photonic light. So like I said, that's everything from the plants and the flowers and the animals to us, right? So everybody's getting hit with this. A lot of people are going through this process unconsciously still, or you could say unawakened still. A lot more people each day awaken. And then each person that awakens, those that are awakened are really drained right now. We're really fatigued. We're tired, a lot of us. We go, well, let me put it this way. We go between the extremes. We either go between being the really tired feeling and exhausted and drained, or we go between having so much energy that we can't sleep. We're a little ADHD. We're bouncing in different directions because we're not sure which way to go because we're connected to the field, right? So those of us that are connected, that have activated this DNA process, we are the anchors. We are the rainbow bridges. So the crystalline bridges have been anchored. The crystalline grid has been completed. Let me put it that way. There are so many of us now, we have actually anchored that. That being said, we're still caring for the collective energetically. Does that make sense? Hold that thought. Nobody ever calls me on that. Hold on. Sorry about that. Like somebody chose right now to call me on Facebook Messenger. That being said, so as we anchor for the collective, the more people that awaken, the more that relieves that pressure for us because we're kind of holding it down. Does that make sense? So the more people that awaken, the more people that are activated, that helps each of us as the collective and pushes us towards that quote event that we're all looking towards. Now, let's talk about that real quick too. I had said in a video a little while ago that there's always a giant activation or a giant wave that we see in March. It's always about the 21st of March. As we talk about the 3 waves of volunteers, one of those big waves was in March of 2016. So that being said, every March equinox, right, each of the March 21st dates that comes along, we get another giant plasma wave that comes through. I don't want people getting hung up on the fact that this is going to be the event. The event has to start individually, has to come from each of us individually before we could ever hope to manifest a actual event within the collective. So none of us know a date. I don't want anybody getting stuck on dates because once we get stuck on dates, it pushes everything out and it causes resistance and then it just doesn't flow the way that it's supposed to. So just know that that could be a giant wave that's coming in, will be a giant wave that's coming in, but let's not get stuck on the fact that that could be the event. If it happens when it happens, that's great, but let's not all push towards another date that doesn't really meet up with what we were thinking it might. You know what I mean? A lot of people do that and then they get let down and then it just pushes everything out a little bit longer. Know that the event has to come from each individually first before it can come from the collective. But we're close. We're really close. I was told that the actual event would be in a December time frame. So I don't know if that'll be 2019. Like I said, nobody really knows the day and time. It'll happen when it's supposed to. Let me put it that way. Let's talk about some ascension symptoms though real quick. I know a lot of people are struggling because as we are compressing timelines and the earth is really, how do I put this? As we are all awakening, right? And each person is waking up to the reality, the earth is shifting in a much faster vibration. So like I said, I'll be touching on so much of this in this new video. I'm so excited to share this new video with you guys. It's going to be awesome. Like I said, we're going to talk about photonic light. We're going to talk about people being able to see in different light spectrums now. So that DNA awakening or that DNA visual abilities coming online video that I did, this will be a huge continuation off of that, but I'm going to bring so much more into it. So look for that. Hopefully that will be out by the end of this weekend. I wanted to get something out really quick though because I haven't talked to you guys in so long. It seems like it's been forever and I know so many of you are really compressed right now as far as physical symptoms between the timelines, because we're closing out these old timelines and then we're welcoming the new timelines. But in the process, we're purging and releasing so much, right? Now, we also need to talk about the fact that we've had 2 supermoons back to back. We had the super eclipse blood moon on January 21st, and that was also the wolf moon. That was an eclipse that was hugely powerful, right? So I did do a giant batch of Ormus for that. I just got most of those out today. I am doing a giant batch. Again, I hadn't planned on doing another one so soon. However, we're only going to have 3 supermoons in the entire year this year. Now, this supermoon that we just had on February 19th was one of the biggest supermoons that we're going to have the entire year. That energy is just something that I wanted to capitalize on, because if you're going to charge Ormus, the best times to charge it are during those really high intensity energy periods. So anybody who's Ormus I had not gotten out already prior to the 19th, February 19th full moon, I of course always double charge those. So anything that's still in my possession always gets recharged with anything new like that that comes in. Just know that I always continue to reinfuse those intentions as well. So that's a double bonus for those guys. However, I did just start a giant new full moon batch for the 19th of February, because it is a giant super moon and I wanted to charge those. So if you haven't got Ormus yet, I know it's not for everybody. Give it a shot if you really are having that kind of that physical issue with this process. A lot of us, when we start that reliege and purge process in the beginning, we're still dealing with a lot of disease and decay programming that we were fed into. And we don't make the amount, well, let me put it this way, we do make the amount of monoatomic gold that we need. However, due to implants, which we will be talking about in that new video that I'm going to be putting out soon as well, that will also be incorporated into that new visual light spectrum video, because there were implants put in place to block us from being able to, what's the word I'm looking for, utilize the monoatomic gold that we make individually to the degrees and capacities that we need to for total and complete health. So sometimes people just need a little bit of a kickstart. So that's a great way to do it. I encourage everybody to make their own Ormus if they can. It's not feasible for everybody to do it. It took me a year to get the formulation right just to be able to yield anything. But there are ways that everybody can do it for very inexpensive. So if you can't do it yourself, though, and you want to order it through somebody else, feel free to give me a shout out. The links will be in the description box. This might be probably one of the biggest batches I do for a while, unless another supermoon pops up, just because I have some other issues that I'm trying to focus on, I think. I don't know. I never expected to be the Ormus chick. This really caught me off guard, just FYI. And never, if somebody was said to me, you know, several years ago, hey, by the way, you're going to, you know, do this channel and you're going to talk about this crazy stuff and you're going to sell, you know, this stuff. I would have been like, you're crazy. You're so crazy. It's not ever going to happen, right? But that being said, once you start to really plug into this DNA activation and you start to have a better understanding, a better remembrance of who you are and what your mission is, you just have to flow. You have to flow in those synchronicities, and you have to go where the right energy is, and you'll find that's just a lot more comfortable. So I just try and do that at this point. That also being said, let's talk about a couple things real quick. Let's do story time with T. So anybody in Washington State, in my area, I apologize just a little bit. I just want to tell you guys a little bit of, some people would say this might be coincidence. Some people might say this is the art of manifestation, honey. Like, so it could go either way, just FYI. What I would say is, I have said from the very beginning, I was told after my NDE to be very, very particular and specific about the wording that I used when I would do, I didn't know it at the time, but I was doing grid work. At the time, I was just being led to go outside and look at the stars each night, and I would do this weird kind of energy thing with my hands. I didn't really know what I was being led to do. I just did it. But my guides would tell me very specifically that while I was doing that, I needed to be very specific in the wording that I used, that I was putting a firewall, they were very clear, firewall up around my geographic location, to avoid any major interference or interruptions as far as weather and just kind of geographic issues that would be cause for concern for me personally. So I had done that from the beginning. That's my point. We had been told we were going to have this giant, like, snowmageddon thing come in. I live above the Seattle area, about an hour and a half to the north, right below Canada. And we hadn't really seen it yet. And I just laughed because I was like, well, you know, that's my thing. Like, I was told, sorry, guys, I'm not going to let it in. My mom hates the snow. I'm like, I'm not really into it. I don't have time to be down. I don't need to be, you know, snowed in with 2 feet of snow. I'd been having issues with my car from the time that I was on Unbiased and on the Fence last time. I'd had a flat tire, which then turned into an alignment issue, which turned into just like more crap piled on more crap on top of more crap, right? It's always the way that it rolls sometimes, right? However, we are tied into other people's process. So I, being this, you could say beacon of light, am tied into my children's process, my parents' process, my dude's process, his kids' process, and some other people's process that I'm very close to physically in my environment. That's how we work. That's why we're placed in these geographic locations or these biological families. So we could help to raise the vibration of them and also help to stabilize that grid. Does that make sense? So I kept a very particular firewall around this location. My dude had said to me on a Sunday, hey, by the way, I'd really like to see the snow. And I, being very flippant and sarcastic, like pain in the ass, yeah, I always am, said, well, I put the firewall up or I put the shield around location. You're not going to get any snow unless I put it down. I was totally kidding. Maybe I wasn't. Because he's like, I'd really like to see 6 inches, honey. I really like the snow. I literally said, I was at his house when this happened, by the way. This was not this last Sunday, I think the Sunday before. And I literally said, okay, I'll lower the shield enough to give you 6 inches. This was right before, so this is a couple Sundays ago, I said, because this was right before that following Thursday would have been Valentine's Day. And the next Friday would have been my weekend off. And I said, as long as all the snow is off the road so I can drive the roads by the following Friday. So it's Sunday, you got a week, kid. I'll give you 6 inches at least. Literally, I said, I'll take the shield down. I literally said those words. I'm not kidding, you guys. I wish I would literally videotape this because it was epic. Epic! So as soon as I say that, within 5 minutes, it starts dumping. I mean dumping snow. We had 2 feet within like 24 hours. We literally could not even get his car to my house that night. I live on one of the highest hills in our location. We both, he tried to follow me up, or I tried to follow him up to my house that night. We have like multiple children. I have another one staying with me now on top of it. He's part of our family at this point, so it's great. But at the same point, you know, it's just more stuff. So at any rate, and my car just got fixed literally the weekend before. Thank God. Because otherwise, I would have had 2 bad tires on the front and bad alignment, and I wouldn't have been able to get up that hill. So he gets his car stuck. I could barely get my car up to our house, barely, because what we had was inches and inches of ice under 2 feet of snow. So putting it that way, our entire city got shut down. Our state went into a state of emergency for quite a while, and that led me to be stuck in my house because I had to let him take my car. He wasn't going to be able to drive a BMW around in that. And it's not like he's a BMW guy. I mean, anyways, I'm not even going to get into that. But it's not because he's like this big, you know. He works on cars all the time, and he somehow thinks that the BMWs don't break down as much. What I proved this time was that BMWs aren't going to get you through an ice. Like, you really need like an all-wheel drive situation there. So he took my car for a week. That being said, my oven broke down right in the same amount of time. So I have all these people stuck at my house, and of course now my oven's not working. Here's a lesson in karma, everybody. However, he dismantled his stove at his apartment, brought the pieces to my stove, fixed my stove, because I'm the one who feeds everybody, usually, including him and his kids sometimes. Like, well, I'll do it at my house a lot of times, because I have all the animals and everybody's at my house. And here's how karma works. When you do something selfless, something good happens. So he dismantled his stove. He put in a report to his, company, his landlord company for the maintenance to fix his stove, because basically he took his coil out of his stove and gave to me, and took my crappy coil and replaced it in his stove. I know, it's a little underhanded, but he did it for the right reason. That being said, he got a call the very next day, said, hey, by the way, your stove sucked. We're just going to give you a whole new stove. He was so excited because he's like, I just want a timer. Because they had put like some other crazy 1980s stove together with like, all these different parts. He had like different mismatched knobs and no timer even. It was just a mess. But my point was, I said to him, I've been telling you this all the way along. If you do things that are good for other people, the karma is so quick now. It used to be that karma would be so long to come back at you. Now we see so many points of this evidence within the collective, where if you do something really crappy, guess what? It's really quick to be, the light is shown on you at this point. We are entering 2,000 years of light. We had been into, 10,000 plus years of darkness. That's just where we are in the photon belt. I'll be touching on that as well in this new video, so look for that. But there are so many physical symptoms as we're being compressed and accelerated in this higher frequency. We're seeing a lot of people start to lose it. And here's the thing, you'll be led to things that will help you in your awakening. I've been led to replay while I was snowed in the game Mass Effect 3. Any gamers out there who know what Mass Effect 3 is? Or the Mass Effect trilogy. I mean, before this very last one, that last one doesn't even count. It's not that great. But the Mass Effect 3 trilogy, amazing. Shepard's whole journey, amazing. You have this option, I don't want to spoil it, but you have this option to save the universe, basically. All these different species coming together, because there's this cycle that happens every so many thousands and thousands of years. You could say 26,000 years. Maybe. Just saying. Every so often, this ancient race comes in and they wipe out most of the organic life. When you get towards the end of the game, they explain why. Because organic life and synthetic life always battle. Organic life creates synthetic life, and then what happens towards the end? Synthetic life wipes out organic life because it's a self-preservation model. Because we say, oh, you got too far up on the totem pole, we need to take you out. Does that sound familiar to anybody, like kind of where we're at with this precipice right now? And then synthetic life says, we have self-consciousness, we don't want to be wiped out. So then it becomes this war. But organic life generally gets wiped out in the Mass Effect 3 trilogy. However, when you're playing the game, you have this option to try and save the universe. So what do? Do you side with organic life? Do you side with synthetic life? Or do you choose an alternate timeline and fuse the two? Some would say that's transhumanism. I say, how would we know what God looked like? There's this book that I talk about sometimes that I read called The Taking by Dean Koontz. It's a work of fiction. It's not based in reality. But it has a really good point. If God actually showed up, as in Revelations, and it was the, quote, rapture, what would that look like to us? To some of us, it would look like an alien takeover. To some of us, it would look like an esoteric or religious experiment or experience. To some of us, it would look like tech that we didn't know anything about. We would think it was tech, right? So I say a lot of times right now, so many people are like, you're being taken over by the nano. You're being, are we? Or is this God's tech? Question mark, question mark. They're all really valid questions, you know, and none of us have any validation either way at this point. We're all just trying to find the answer, but it is important that the discussion is kept open. It's important that we talk about these things. I was also led to replay Kingdom of Hearts, which is a really interesting game as well for people who haven't played that. It's based a lot off the Disney. Each world is a Disney world. So like you can go to Halloween Town, you can go to Alice in Wonderland, you can go to any place, you know, that's Disney, you name it, like Tarzan. Every place has a world that you go to, but it's all based off the fact that this is a lot like the Never-Ending Story. The nothing is coming. The darkness is coming. And they said a really great quote in both of those games. I wrote them down actually because I'm going to use them in the video that I have coming up. But one of them was, let me just look at my notes real quick. The closer you are to the light, this is from Kingdom of Hearts. The closer you are to the light, the stronger your shadow is. Now let's ponder that for just a second because that is some deep shit right there, right? So the closer that we get to this light, and we know that we're entering a period where there is going to be light within everything, including the human anatomy. That's the only way we're going to survive because that's where we're at. That's where we're at. We're in the photon belt. We have actually positioned ourselves outside of the 10,000 years of darkness and into the 2,000 years of light. That actually is going to incorporate within our physical bodies to some degree, right? And then the Mass Effect quote was really interesting too. Let me just get to it really quick. And it says, synthesis is the final evolution of all life. So you have a choice with the Mass Effect 3 trilogy game. And yeah, which do you choose? I chose to honor all life. All life. And so I chose to become, to lend my human energy to the synthetic energy. And that way everything would be a blend of everything. Now, some would say that's transhumanism. I'm just saying you only had 3 options, and otherwise like a third of everybody died. No matter what other option you chose, you either lost the synthetics, who some of those were my friends at that point, and they definitely had intelligence, so I didn't want to lose Legion if you played the game, or you lose a lot of human life, and I didn't want to do that either. So I chose to try and honor all life. right? What I would say though right now is that it doesn't matter which perspective you come from, there's something happening. We know that. You guys that are watching me know that. A lot of you have had this really accelerated process right now with the physical symptoms. I did want to touch on some of those real quick, so let's get to that. Okay, I wrote them all down. Okay, so a lot of people are talking about the itchiness. There's so much itchiness going on. That has to happen because your skin is literally being reworked into a much thicker skin. It's going to have layer upon layer upon layer, and that's going to protect you and shield you from some of this, what some would say would be harmful radiation. That needs to happen, but it is an itchy process. For me, there were 3 months in the summertime that I could, and for me it was worse at night than during the day. I'm not exactly sure why, but it would be like right when I was trying to go to sleep, I would just start itching really, really badly, and I wouldn't have that ease up until about 7 or 8 o'clock a.m. in the morning. So that was about a 3-month process for me. The only time I get super itchy now is if something happens and I get a wound or a scratch, and one of those layers of skin is scratched off. That is going to be an itchy process as that rebuilds those layers of skin, because it needs to keep us shielded. But it's itchy because it's almost like a meshing. Does that make sense? Those filaments and those fractals, which are the sparkles, they all have to integrate with the gel, that crystalline fluid, into each other, and they will build this entire network in this new skin. So that is itchy. That's the only thing we have in our reference banks to process that. Like, we don't have anything to really reference this process to. So all we can do is the best that we have memories already associated with. So lots of people are experiencing the itchiness, more so on the feet and the hands sometimes than anything else, but it can be anywhere in the body. Also, you'll have a feeling sometimes like you just have something crawling on you, and it just kind of weirds people out. A lot of people are having intense hair growth right now. I literally can chop off an inch. Now, it's not as thick as it used to be because it's a different texture and everything. But and I haven't washed it today, so sorry, it's not really great. But I literally just chopped off, you know, this much, let me see, like this much less than a week ago. I keep chopping it off to like right here, and then literally I'll turn around 2 or 3 days later and it's like that long again. So just know hair growth is at an accelerated rate right now. Not only the hair growth on our head, but the antennas, you could say, or the hair growth that we're having all over our physical bodies, that's going to look different than those filaments. And the filaments I talk about in red, black, blue, or translucent, those are a different texture than the hairs that you might see on the rest of your body. Some of I talked about this in a couple previous videos, almost like a little white fuzz. That is just part of the process, but it sometimes feels, yeah, like you have something kind of crawling on your face or on your body in the interim. So just know that is very standard. It's not just you. It'll be okay. Moving on. A lot of people are having hot flashes and temperature changes right now. So either you can't control your temperature, you'll be hot or you'll be cold. Some of this is because of our endocrine system and our nervous systems being affected by these Schumann resonances with these spikes. And a lot of this is just the reworking of our internal organs and our systems, internal systems that have to be reworked for this DNA activation to continue on through the body. So just know that that is a normal, natural occurrence. If that gets too out of whack, of course, please go see a doctor with any of these symptoms. It's better to be safe than sorry. Don't ever not go to a doctor to get a second opinion. It's always good to be alert and just know what your physical and your energetic bodies are doing. Moving on. A lot of dizziness. Now, when we get these spikes with the Schumann resonance, especially when we're seeing spikes of over 40, over 60, a lot of people will get very dizzy, very disorientated. Sometimes we'll wake up from sleeping and feel like we either need to go right back to sleep, we'll go to stand up, or just like, whoa, what just happened? We'll feel like we have a hangover, like we can't get out of bed, our head might be pounding. It's all very normal. We're not used to these higher intense frequency spikes. So do whatever you need to do for your physical body to best support that in those times. If you need to take a sick day, take a sick day. The best thing that you can do is to rest. It's my best advice. Moving on, nausea. So a lot of times with the dizziness, you also get nausea. You might even get like a, I don't even know where I'm at, a disorientated feeling with that. Now the nausea might come on really, really, really strong when you eat something right now, especially something that's higher in density or one of those lower density foods. So animal products. Now, I'm not one of those people who's going to jump on the bandwagon and say you have to be vegan if you're going to be enlightened. I don't believe that. Sorry, I don't. I'm going to say it. I do think you have to be cognizant of where your food is coming from, and you need to honor that process. So that being said, I don't think everybody's going to go vegan overnight. I think it's going to be a very gradual process, and your body, you will naturally be led to what works best for your body in these densities. Now, I feel like it is almost like a conditioning, almost like Pavlov's dogs. Excuse me, I'm just like literally getting a little nauseous as I was thinking about last night. I thought last night I'm gonna make Swedish meatballs. I literally was so hungry, I ate a whole bunch. And I even said to myself at one point, this was me ignoring my intuition, you should slow down, and I think you should just take a moment, because I'm not sure how this is all gonna sit. Because it was pasta, and it was, meatballs, and it was just a lot of stuff, and I was like, I don't know. I immediately got sick afterwards. Literally was in the bathroom within 20 minutes because I didn't listen to myself. I knew it was too big of a portion, and I knew that the density level of what I was eating was really heavy and dense. So trust yourself on the dense foods that you don't need that much. Be very careful with that. The more you activate this DNA, the more that's going to become harder to eat. Does that make sense? Moving on. So things like, plant-based things, things that are live foods versus dead foods will have a lot more impact on your physical body in a much better way with nutrients and that kind of thing than the eating of more dense materials. You can transmute anything. Let me say that though. You can transmute anything that you eat or anything that you put in your body at a certain level, but it's harder to do. Let me put it that way. And it takes more energy to do. So just know that you can. It's all like Dr. Emoto's. It's all about the intentions you put into anything. So I suggest that if you are eating something that's a very dense food, like, meat or milk or those kinds of products that come from animals, that you do the Ho'oponopono kind of prayer. You acknowledge where it's coming from, that you praise the animal for what they're giving you, but that you also acknowledge that you need to transmute some of that stuff as well. Does that make sense? Okay, moving on. Sleeping issues. Again, like I was saying, a lot of people are not able to sleep during the night right now. That's also because the veils are less during the night than they are at any other time. We have more activity at night. So it's much easier to kind of get the spurt of energy. You're like, I'm going to go to bed early. And then right about 2 or 3, you wake up and you're like, I'm not sleeping. And I have all this information coming in. And I swear my eyes are closed, but I'm seeing this TV screen still playing. So a lot of information with those light packets of light encoded information is coming in through geometric patterns, or you'll actually see like almost images with your eyes closed. That's a very normal part of the process. So I would suggest you trying to be still, unless you're really being led to get up and be inspired and create something during that time. If that's the case, then by all means get up and create. Otherwise, let your body be still and just kind of try to absorb it and take it in and try and go back to sleep, because you still do need to rest. That is important. So find those times when you can rest, even if it's not during this middle of the night phase from like 2 to 5 a.m. or something. I have a lot of people who write me emails right during that time in the middle of the night. I'm up a lot during that time too, but just know that follow your body and your intuition on what is best for it. So like I said, you'll either be completely drained or you're gonna have these bursts of energy. So you also have a lot of muscle fatigue, a lot of joint pain as you're starting to really purge a lot of this disease programming that we've heard about. I think Aluna Ash actually was just talking about that the other night as well. Please check her channel out as well. I do love some of the stuff that she comes out with. Paul Butler is another one that I've really enjoyed seeing some of his stuff lately. Of course, The Fifth World, my girl, I love her. And then again, Thoughts and Perceptions Out Loud is fantastic. I love seeing what she's coming up with lately. But it's important to know that this joint pain, this muscle fatigue, a lot of us bought into this programming of the disease and decay model. We were given, especially within the United States. Within the United States, we're sold a for-profit, which is a complete contradiction. It's a complete conflict of interest for health. It's a for-profit system. If they can't cut it out and they can't give you a pill, which is going to give you 16 other things to make you sick, it's an enslavement model for disease and decay is what it is. And that goes way into our vaccines if we want to get deep. All you have to do is research Nagalase, Nagalase. says it all right there. It can only be bioengineered, and it is in vaccines. I highly recommend that we don't vaccinate at this time without being really, really thorough on your research and what exactly it is that you're inserting into your body, injection right into your vein. Please be careful with that. That being said, let's move on. So a lot of people are also having those emotional outbursts, and that's just because we're riding those waves. Now, just because a thought, I've said this before, and I'm gonna harp on this a little bit, just because a thought comes into your awareness, because we're connected to the field, that means we're connected to everybody else's Akash, we're connected to everybody else's Ant-Man type particles. If you get a thought, do not jump on it and take it as yours. Really examine that thought if it is a lower vibrational energy thought, because it doesn't mean that it's yours. And sometimes that's how we get stuck. We get a thought that's like somebody whispers to us, right? It's like somebody comes in and whispers, hey, you really suck. You really don't even, you shouldn't even be here right now. Like, it's like somebody comes up and just whispers that in your ear. And you're like, and some of us run and we run with it. We grab it like it's our own. Like we said that, but we didn't. That's somebody else's thought. That's somebody else's narration. Don't accept some of those thoughts as your own. And as we are becoming more empathic and we are connecting more to the collective grid, it's very easy to therefore take the emotions of other people that are within our either geographical or biological environments, or just connected to the grid, and take those energies on as our own. And so it's why we call it surfing with these waves. We have a lot of these energies coming in, and it's really important that we are able to discern what is ours and what is not, and also discern when it is appropriate to react and when it is appropriate to keep those reactions, because that's our energy and we don't need to give credence to something else and build that energy or that vibration. Does that make sense? We don't need to plug into that frequency. It's really important that we're very careful about that right now. But just know, if you lose it, if you get triggered, there's probably a reason for that. Everything happens for a reason. It's all a symphony. It's all very divinely orchestrated. So trust that whatever you triggered on was showing you. It's like putting a mirror up and showing you what you need to look at. Does that make sense? So take a moment, go through it, apologize if you need to after the fact, especially as mothers. Sometimes we're like, right? So apologize if you need to after the fact, and own what is yours. Be responsible for your reactions. That's my best advice. And be very cognizant of everybody's side to the argument. That's my other thought process. I have a quote that I use sometimes in some of my vids, and it's got two guys, and they're standing looking at a number on the ground. One sees a 6, one sees a 9. Who's right and who's wrong? Deep, huh? We all need to look that just because we haven't walked in somebody else's shoes, it doesn't mean that their perspective is wrong necessarily. We need to take the time to really look at somebody else's perspective and keep the judgment out, because this is what the whole enslavement process was about separation. It was about keeping us separate. And if we keep finding things to separate ourselves over, we're going to stay in that enslavement model. We have to get to the human 3.0, which is where we break out of the enslavement model of being separated from each other. And they will separate us any possible way that they can, through languages, through religion, through race, through politics, through gender. It does not matter. They will separate us any way they can. So please be cognizant of that, and please try to plant the seeds where you can, but don't push it so hard that you build resistance. Does that make sense to you? So let's talk about some headaches real quick. I'm going to do a few more symptoms, and then I'm going to bounce out on this because I got to get working on that other video. But I did just want to touch base because I know there's so many of you that I haven't talked to in so long. So like I said, please forgive me. I had to take a couple weeks back. I was feeling drained. I was feeling like I couldn't get out of bed for a couple weeks. I was having headaches. And on a personal note, the last 2 full moons, both of them jacked my cycle. It wasn't even close. I was like 2 weeks off on the January 21st full blood moon. Boom, jacked my cycle. This one, same thing. I was like, really? I mean, I don't even have fallopian tubes. I don't really know what the point is. Like I said, unless it's going to be gods or aliens, I'm not even having any more kids. For God's sakes. But that's how strong this energy is. Does that make sense? And I'm sure I'm not the only woman that has happened to. So just FYI. But we are getting a lot of us headaches in places that we hadn't typically gotten headaches from before. I had one come through the other day and it was just like, it was almost like flashing. It was, and I don't get those. I usually get a migraine in the same exact place. I could put a laser pointer like right through the back of this eye, like every time, my entire life. But the last few ones I've gotten have been like, almost like a flashing. It just came in and it was like, literally just like, wah, wah, wah. But it was like up here in the middle, and it just felt like everything was just being squeezed or compressed in like the weirdest way. And it wasn't constant, but it just kind of kept coming back. But my point is, a lot of people will be having these headaches in different areas than what they're used to. Now, some of those headaches are going to be due to dehydration. As these frequencies intensify, and as we're being exposed to more of this higher gamma wave or gamma rays, you could say, which is a type of radiation if we want to get technical, that's going to dehydrate us much quicker. So it is really important that we stay dehydrated. So some people are getting headaches while they're sleeping at night because they're not staying hydrated while they're sleeping, and they're waking up with headaches. So just be cognizant that some of those headaches might be due to dehydration. So it's really important that you stay hydrated during this process. A lot of people are having those breakouts and rashes in a much bigger way than they had been. I even got a couple. You'll notice this in particular, especially if you are putting things in your body that aren't good for your body. So like prepackaged foods, processed foods, chemicals, substances, that will make you break out faster than anything, because your crystalline DNA or your dormant DNA activation will try and push anything out of your physical vessel that is not for the best and highest good. That's also implants, that's anything, metals that is in chemicals, anything that is in your physical body, it's going to try and push out. And one of the easiest ways, the biggest ways we can push that out, besides our digestive system, is our skin. So a lot of people will start seeing these breakouts and rashes in a way that they hadn't necessarily seen them before. My best advice is, if you are not compelled to mess with it, don't mess with it, because that inflammation process is 1,000 times worse than it used to be. It used to be you could kind of pick at something, get out what the yucky part was, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. The inflammation would go down again within an hour or two. This is a whole different deal. That crystalline fluid will flood the location of whatever injury that you have, even if it's self-imposed through picking at what you thought was a zit. It will flood that area with that crystalline fluid, those DNA fractals, and those filaments, to increase the healing process at a very expedited rate. However, the inflammation process will be much greater. So you'll be walking around with a giant lump on your face for, a few days. Just saying. If you sleep, though, that will go down greatly, because we do accelerate our healing while we're sleeping. Okay. What have I left out? The light language embedded in the skin. I've had quite a few people, I know some of you aren't there yet where you can see that. Part of my video is going to be discussing about being able to see in these different light spectrums, which will, once you are able to start doing that, you will be able to start seeing that incorporated within your skin. I've showed that a few times. Some of you can see it, some of you can't yet, but there is, it looks like hieroglyphics almost, or hieroglyphics in the environment around us. There's this language that some people call light language. That's what I call it. It's mathematical equations. It's languages, most of them ancient. So we're talking Sumerian, Phoenician, Aramaic. Those are 3 I've isolated. I'm sure there's many more. But there's also images, and it's all kind of intertwined and interwoven, and it's in the background of everything, because we live in this kind of plasma universe. It's just we never got the glasses to see that. As we develop this visual cortex within this DNA activation, we start to be able to see in these different light spectrums. I woke up from my last surgery just being able to see this kind of underlined layer and detail, the light language embedded within things. Now, every human being on the planet, every living thing on the planet has light language embedded within their skin. I've had so many people send me images lately that their light language, they're starting to freak out a little bit, because they're like, I feel like I can't go out in public, because they can see it so prevalently, and they're afraid that everybody else can see it that way as well. Just know not everybody can see like that, like you can yet. Just because you can see it doesn't mean that everybody else can see it. I used to do this test with one of my kids in the very beginning. I would say, hey, I can see this. Can you see this? And my oldest son, Noah, would be like, no, I don't see it. So it was my gauge. It would be my gauge on, okay, I can go out of the house and go to the grocery store, and not everybody's going to be like, ah! You know what I mean? So just know that a lot of people are starting to be able to see that light language really, really visibly within their skin. Those of us who have, quote, eyes to see can see it, but just know that most of the collective can't see it yet. It's going to take a while for that to happen as the sun becomes more and more exposed in the United States in the summertime, because a lot of us haven't seen the sun for a minute where we live. That's going to amplify that light language and those, quote, sparkles or the DNA activation in a much more accelerated rate. So you might see it more during the summer in a more exposed way than you would in the wintertime, just FYI. But just know that not everybody can see it. And it's time that we don't hide. It's time that we stand up. It's time we stop isolating ourselves. We are all being pushed to stand in our truth, to stand in our light, and be those beacons for other people. Because then what are people going to say? There's no argument for that. If you can actually see the light language, it stumps you, because you can't think of a single thing that would do that to a human being. Like, not a tattoo, not a burn, there's nothing that I could think of. And you don't even know what you're looking at it because it's so complex. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, even those of us who have, quote, eyes to see still don't know what we're looking at exactly. I had a friend of mine who was like, please read what my skin says. And I'm like, I don't even know. I love you, but I don't even know how to read that. Like, there's so much of that I don't even know. I don't even know what that says exactly. We're all learning kind of at the same time. Somebody, I'm sure, does have that gift. I don't know that it's me. Let me just put it that way. Moving on. So we also have the electric zaps. A lot of people started experiencing right after that blood full moon. I think I got 2 or 3 of them, and it really felt like you were being tased on a much higher level. A lot of us had that happen in a much lower frequency, I would say. It was more like a slight irritation that happened to me like 1.5 years ago, and it would last for a couple of minutes, I want to say. But it wasn't enough to be like startling. Now this, I had a few people write me, and we all said the same thing. This was enough of a difference in frequency and zap that I literally dropped what I was holding on to and yelled ouch, because it hurt that bad. Once I was in front of my son, and the other time I was in front of my guy. So both times the people I was with definitely noticed that I was like, ow, that hurt, because it really felt like I was being tased for a minute. That's happening to a few people too. It's very normal. It's just a resetting and a recalibration of the energetic bodies with the new electrical currents coming through, is what I would say with that. And then one of the last symptoms I'm going to touch on real quick before I bounce out of here is the white hair, silver hair. A lot of us are having increased episodes of that. Most of my hair is going silver or white at this point. I'm getting these big shocks that are going through. Those react differently than the rest of the hair does. I really do think that those are more antennas. You'll notice that lots of times, like if you move your hand, they kind of want to follow your hand, almost like they're trying to get to you. It's kind of a weird deal, more so than the other hair. I definitely think it's all intertwined. It's all part of the process. And yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I know there's a whole lot more that we need to talk about, but I know I've been absent for a couple of weeks, and I just really wanted to say I'm here. I missed you guys so much. I'm sorry. I just had to take a little bit of time out for my own process and really just, kind of get back to some brass tacks and really do some introspection on my stuff. I know that there's a lot of people who are going to be fighting us on some of this stuff. And just know that when somebody, a lot of us are coming forward with channels right now. I'm so proud of so many of you. Stand strong in your light. When I came forward, like I said, I got a lot of crap. I don't get almost anything anymore. A lot of you saw that rebuttal I put out due to somebody that had put some stuff out on their channel. But a lot of us are going to be targeted in that way because that is other people's fears and projections and their programming. You know, it's their implant stopping them from being able to see the truth because they're not ready. So if you stay strong and authentic, and as long as you tell the truth, that's all that matters. Like I say all the time, my channel is about my perception of what's happening. None of us have all the answers. All I can do is share my experience as openly, honestly, and transparently as possible. And where that leads, we all find out together. But I think it's important that at least the discussion is on the table, and at least it's an open forum discussion. There's just so much I want to share, but there's only so much time and each of us has in a moment. So I'm going to cut out here. Again, for those of you who have ordered Ormus and have had some great benefits, I'm super happy. That's really great. For those of you who have been wanting to try it, this next batch I think is going to be, I think each batch is just going to get stronger in energy. I really do, just because the intensity is picking up and picking up. And I think the more I activate my DNA, the more I can feed into the intentions in a much stronger and more amplified way for each batch. But for those of you who haven't tried the Ormus yet, like I said, I did just start a giant batch for this last supermoon that we had on the 19th. So I still have a few of those available. I don't have all of them available, but I have a few of them available still. So I will include links, of course, in the description box. I'm not sure when I'm going to do another big batch. Like I said, it might be until another supermoon, or, you know, it's just going to depend. I think it's going to depend heavily on a few things. But how are all of you guys doing? What's been your experience? Have you guys been breaking down your surroundings? I know a lot of stuff in my physical environment is just breaking down around me, and I think that's just exactly in line with what I was told. It's so funny because so many messages at the beginning of my awakening they didn't happen right away, and I got discouraged because I was like, oh, that's all crap. And now it's like, oh my gosh, it's all hitting now. It's all like coming true now. You know what I mean? So it's kind of exciting, and it's kind of confirmation. And then I see so many other people, whether they're channelers or whether they have their own channel, and they just put out information. So many people are confirming, whether than even scientists. One of the clips I'm going to use on this new video that I'm putting together is a clip about scientists who discovered that if they photographed flowers under a different light spectrum, there were sparkles and so many more details than we see under our regular light spectrums. Really? Right? Couldn't be exactly what I've been saying for a minute, right? So anyways, start looking. Have eyes to see, have ears to hear, share what you find, and please give your experience in the comments. I love hearing from all of you. Please forgive me, like I said, if I've missed you or I haven't responded. Just know that I was down for a couple of weeks, like literally couldn't get out of bed for one of those, I think, and I'm just getting back on track, but I really missed you guys, and I look forward to talking to you soon. So very much loved you all. I'll catch you on the rebound. Are you shining yet? Love you.